Hello and welcome to TEC Bike Parts. Today we're going to do a roundup on all the things relating to Royal Enfield bikes, in particular the new 350 Meteor, because I know we've had a lot of inquiries about what we're going to be making and things you can do to improve it. We didn't get this bike till much later than we thought. Like most people who've ordered Meteors, they were delayed with shipping and COVID and stuff like that. Luckily, we did get a loan bike from Royal Enfield, which we've did a lot of riding on, so we knew what we needed to address, and we managed to measure all the things we needed to measure on the bike, and it gave me a good feel for what the bike is suited to and where it's lacking a little bit. I must admit I was pleasantly surprised. It rides really nice. Around town it's an ideal tool for urban and semi-urban environments. The only real thing that lets it down is the lack of motorway or dual carriageway speed, and also that little burst that you need to do from sort of 45 to 65 miles an hour if you're wanting to overtake traffic. Now we're going to address that. I'm going to more on that in the future and further on in this video. I thought it was just going to be a small update until I started making some notes on what we need to address, and it's actually going to be quite a long video because I've got a lot of things we need to discuss. So I'm going to be showing you some of the new parts that we're going to be making, some of the parts that are in development for next year, not just on the Meteor but on the Interceptor, Intercontinental GT and the Himalayan. Parts for these that we make already are very popular at the moment. In fact, so popular this year we keep running out of things, but that's more to do with supply issues than anything else. So without further ado, I'm going to show you around the Meteor and give my thoughts on the bike. I've probably come from a different direction than a lot of the road tests and reviews have done up to now, because I'll look at it more from an engineering and design point of view. So starting off with the bar area and the clocks. Royal Enfield have upped the game a bit with the quality and image on certain areas of the bike. I'm pleasantly surprised at the switch gear. The levers are nicer than the previous generation bikes, but they still have no reach adjustability. So we will be making reach adjustable levers. They're getting machined up now and should be available in 2022. Mirrors, again, I don't particularly. They're actually quite a good mirror. It looks like a bit of a copy of the old Z mirrors Kawasaki used to make. They're very solidly made and good quality, but they're not everybody's fashion, and they do option bar ends, and we are doing our bar ends for them as well, in different sizes and different colours. The suspension is actually quite good on the bike for such a budget-based bike, but we will be able to improve the forks and the shock absorbers if we have enough desire from people to do it. Forks are fairly simple because they're basically the same construction what's on the Interceptor, so what works on the Interceptor we can get to work on this, so we do various different things. Generally, brakes, wheels, quite happy with them. I can see why they've gone for a cast wheel and not a spoke wheel. It's probably more to do with the domestic Indian market, because customers in India are very puncture prone because of the roads and type of riding that do and debris that they pick up on the tyres. And a tubeless tyre is much safer than a tube tyre because it tends to deflate at a much more controlled rate. So I can see why they've done it. It's probably also for ease of manufacturing it. They can probably save a bit of money. And again, I think for the Indian market, they definitely prefer a cast wheel. Brakes, they've stayed with the second line Brembos, as they have on all the other bikes. Very good value for money, good performance. Standard pad material is lacking a bit, and we normally upgrade them to EBC. But on the performance of this bike, they're well within their capabilities. Nice to see that they've gone for a clear lens headlight, which actually again looks quite good quality. Shame that this is plastic. It would have been nicer if it had been made in steel like the old bikes, but again, it's down to a price. Very interesting, the choice of indicator lamps. They're actually much better looking than the ones that they fitted to the Interceptor or the Himalayan for that matter. They do look like they belong on a modern bike, but if you look very carefully, you can see these are one of an ex-Triumph designers' jobbies that have gone to Royal Enfield. They could have changed the design a bit more than what they had over Triumph. They're almost identical to the ones that they fit on the modern Triumph range as the base indicators. You'd be hard pushed to tell them apart unless you put them right next to each other. Clocks are nice. I would like to have seen a rev counter somewhere on there. It wouldn't have cost them anything to put a display around the inner part where they had the fuel gauge. They could have put that somewhere else on the display, and it wouldn't have cost them anything at all. Maybe they're going to do that as an upgrade later on. Right, some of the things that I don't like on the bike. I can see the sort of lost interest when they came to these footrests and gear levers. I mean, this bolt is, it's something like you'd use on a prototype, and the amount of play in this is unreal. It doesn't have any proper bushings or bearings in this, and it's going to wear like crazy. There's no way you can sort of lubricate other than put a bit of grease on, but where it is, it's just going to get washed off with dirt and water. We have come up with an alternative to this. And also, not everybody, from the feedback I get, in my personal riding experience, not everybody likes the heel toe system. So we've actually designed a CNC lever with a proper rose jointed linkage that's much more positive. It gets rid of all this free play, and at the moment the prototype we've made doesn't use the heel part, and we found it works really well. I do want to try it with several other different riders to get the feedback, so it's probably going to be springtime before we finalise it, because it's not the time of year to be riding bikes a lot at the moment. But we want to try people with small feet, big feet, to see what adjustability we need to build into it. But the one I've built, the prototype I've built, now I've ridden the bike with it on, I'm really quite happy with it. Another big ergonomic problem that I have with the bike, and several people have commented about, is the forward position of the footrests. And I've found when you're riding this bike on bumpy roads, the shock just goes straight up your spine because all your weight is off your legs and you can't use your legs as a shock absorber. I've tried every way I can to stand up on the pegs on this, but the tank is literally too wide. You can't get your legs past this sort of point, or it just pushes you off the pegs. So I came up with a solution. Normally the simple thing is the best way to do it, and literally what I've done, I don't know if you noticed, I've put an extra foot peg here. Now these are our standard universal rear CNC foot pegs, and they literally screw straight in. I'll show you on the other side how easy it is to do it. And what it does allow you to do, yes, I know you can't change gear or apply the rear brake while you're doing it, but generally I use it for slow speeds, first or second gear on a bumpy road or bumpy track. So I can actually take the weight, not necessarily stand on the pegs, you can stand on the pegs if you want to, but I like to take the weight off my legs so it's not shocking my spine when I hit a bump or a pothole or a speed bump. And when you're not using them, you simply just click them back up again. But I'll show you on the other side how easy it is to do. So these are the mounting bolts either side that hold the silencer unit, the auxiliary silencer unit, in case you didn't realise that the exhaust is actually in 3 sections on this. You've got your front pipe, which is double skinned, it isn't actually that fat. Then this joins to a pipe which has got a catalytic converter here, and then it's got an auxiliary silencer that sits under here. But anyway, you just simply remove this bolt. Now this has got a rubber mounting in as well, so again it saves you getting vibes on the pegs because they're rubber mounted. It's almost as if these were designed to go in here. Now these are exactly as we supply them. These are our universal aluminium CNC click up rear foot pegs. Now they come with the right size bolt, right size pitch thread, and even with a nut. So you literally screw that into the captured threaded nut that's mounted on the silencer, and tighten them up. Tighten them up all the way, and then back them back up to where you want them. I like to have it upright on this side and angled on the other side, because I just think it looks better and blends in more. But you can have it the same on both sides, so it's angled up at about 45 degrees. Once you get to the position you want it in, you simply put the nut on the back and tighten the nut up. It acts as a lock nut, so it can't turn. One of the other things, styling wise, that I don't like about the bike is this low slung number plate. It's absolutely crying out to get this plate up into this area here and get rid of everything below this point so you can see the tyre. It'll take this fat look away from the rear fender and get the indicators mounted higher up. So we are developing a tail tidy unit that will go on here. It fastens underneath the rear lamp. It remounts the number plate light just below the tail light, and it also mounts the indicators at about this sort of height here. But what it does do, it ends here. That's in the final stages of development, and that should be ready fairly soon as well. One thing that I didn't mention actually with the foot pegs is because of the position of these bolts, they are very slightly out of alignment from one another. Strangely enough, you hardly notice it when you use the pegs. And it was actually very normal for British bikes of the 60s and 70s to have their pegs staggered slightly. Coming back to the performance of the bike, there's several areas on the bike that we feel we can improve performance. We're actually starting developing a camshaft for it, like we did with the Himalaya, after we did lots of things and found it was the cam that was the problem. They've got an even milder cam in this than the Himalaya had originally. So we're looking at different cams. We don't want to spoil the low down, soft, torquey feel of the motor. So we're not going to put like a race cam in it. We're just trying to de-restrict the camshaft really, just so we can get that extra bit of breathing at the top end that will allow you to give much quicker acceleration in the mid-speed range, and also get the bike so it reliably does 70 miles an hour, which is, in modern traffic, you don't want to be going much slower on dual carriageways or motorways. You need to be able to get up to the stated speed limit and be able to hold it there into headwinds and up hills, etc. Gearing on this bike is fine. In fact, Royal Enfield quote the maximum speed in 4th gear, not 5th gear, which is a sign that it's lacking power, the engine, and you're having to rev it to get it to go there. But the other area that we're going to be looking at, obviously, is the exhaust system. It's whisper quiet standard. Eagle eyes amongst you will see I've got a different silencer on this. We have been playing around with different things, ways you can upgrade the stock system, and we're making a full stainless system, because it is just mild steel as well and it will corrode, to save weight and get more to give a better sound and better breathing as well. Talking about breathing, we already do a DNA intake kit and high performance, high flow washable air filter that goes in the standard airbox. They're available now. DNA developed these very quickly when this bike came out. So, which brings me to the subject of Euro 5 on this bike. Now, we've now had the Euro 5 bikes have been out enough with the Interceptor, the Himalaya, and this now, that we've done quite a bit of testing on all of them. And we now know, we've also seen the technical diagrams and the data off the bikes to know what we can and cannot do. Now, we worked very closely in the past with Jens at Booster Plug. In fact, Jens and myself developed the booster plug for the first Interceptors. and it was quite a difficult bike to get right on that one. We also had to specially make the plugs as well that went in there. But I've been talking to Jens, and he's very knowledgeable on this. I've got quite a background in fuel injection as well. Now, very cleverly, the ECUs on Euro 5, not just motorcycles, cars, vehicles, everything that has Euro 5 emissions on, now has anti-cheat systems built into it as well. Now, the way that you used to cheat the system in the past was by putting oxygen sensor emulators on, which basically told the bike that it was running leaner than what it was, and that would make it just that little bit richer. They weren't as good as a booster plug, which actually imitated the air intake sensor, because that works in all situations, whereas the O2 only worked in closed loop mode. But now, if the ECU doesn't see a constantly changing reading off the O2 sensors once the bike's warmed up, or it has separate sensors built onto the board for air temperature sensor and map sensors, built atmospheric pressure sensors actually built onto the circuit board in the ECU. And if the readings on those are outside of a very narrow band tolerance, it basically puts a fault light on the bike and says it ain't going to play. There's something wrong. It puts it into a limp program and tells you to take it to the dealer. Now, we have had reported problems with people getting the fault light on these bikes and having to take them back to the dealer. And some of the dealers have been pulling their hair out on these and the Interceptors with running issues, because basically Euro 5 is very, very lean. It's exceptionally lean for an air-cooled engine, and these engines, very unusually, are all air-cooled. Most manufacturers have gone over to water cooling now, and it's very difficult to get them within the Euro 5 parameters with an air-cooled bike and have them run nicely as well. So they're all running very, very lean. Now, we've tried various ways to get around this, and we've basically come up with the realisation that the only way you can get around this is to get into the ECU and remap it. That's the only way that we can see that you can feasibly do it. Other than taking components off the board and putting dual components on, it's just not really feasible. So we've been talking to a very well-renowned engine tuner who reckons he can do it, but I don't think there's the desire there to remap these bikes. They're not a high-performance bike. You'll invalidate your warranty if you do it, and you can take you down all sorts of roads that you really don't want to go down on a bike like this. And it's a lot of money as well to get a bespoke map done for a bike. Yes, we could probably do a standard map that if you had a high flow exhaust and a bit more performance, you could do it. But generally, ECU remapping doesn't really give the power performance on naturally aspirated bikes that it promises, and it does give on cars. It's mostly on turbos where you'll get the huge gains in power. So at the moment, we're not going down that road. We're trying to do all the modifications that will actually work with Euro 5 without having to do a remap, without changing anything, and without putting a fault light on. I'm reluctant to hold up the white flag on this one. I'm never normally beaten on stuff, but I know Jens at Booster Plug and several other tuning companies have already held up the white flag on it, and they've got a lot more experience than me on the subject, so I'm sort of going to bow to their experience on this one. So we're going to concentrate on accurately watching the air-fuel ratio when we put these products on and ride the bikes and see what they ride like. Like I say, we have a camshaft in development, we already have the air intake system, and we will be looking at various options on the exhaust. But it's going to take us a while. It's going to take a few months to get there exactly where we want to be and make sure that it works properly. We don't just want to bung stuff out there that hasn't been fully tested and that we're not fully happy with. So watch this space. We are working on it and we will get there. So I think that about covers everything on the Meteor for now that we want to talk about. There is some other things that we're not really talking about, but will be coming out over the next year. We have product lines, about 40 to 50 product lines coming out on the Meteor alone in the next 12 months. So like I say, just watch the website. They'll not all be coming on together. Because of COVID, we have constraints on labour, supply problems. Just getting raw materials at the right price is a bit of a problem. We've been hit with a lot of price rises, but we're no different to any other industry at the moment, and we're not going to moan about it. We just need to get on with it. We're trying to protect the customers from the price rises as much as we can, but it is inevitable that anything you want to buy it sooner rather than later, because there is a lot of price increases coming down the pipe. We're looking in the sort of 10 to 20% price rise of raw materials. That doesn't necessarily mean that the finished goods will be up 10 to 20%, but you know, factor it in. If you want to buy something, buy it sooner rather than later. Don't put off a purchase till later thinking that the price will come down. It's only going to go up. Right, so that basically covers the Meteor for now. There hasn't been that many things we've done for the Interceptor. We are looking at one or two little tweaks on it. Like I've already touched on Euro 5, we've been spending a lot of time making sure everything's going to work with Euro 5, and one or two new little things. We have got a new range of other accessories like screens, engine bars, other bits and bobs that are coming out for this bike. And again, they will be getting released through 2022. So just keep an eye on the website. We'll try and put some social media updates on when we're getting like a good batch of new parts that are available. I don't want to make any promises on dates because everything's up in the air at the moment. But again, we've probably got about 12 new lines coming out for the Interceptor alone. Himalayan, again, development is ongoing on that. Again, we've been looking at the Euro 5, making sure everything's going to work with it. There is some subtle cycle part changes on the bike as well. One thing that is on the Himalaya and on the Interceptor, a lot of people have been fitting the Royal Enfield screen on the Interceptor, and they can't use our aftermarket headlight brackets because they don't have a mounting for the screen. So I have come up with an indicator adapter that actually fits into the standard headlight brackets. They're not my favourite, the standard headlight brackets, but if you paint them black they ain't too bad. It's just a grey colour. They look like a bit of industrial machinery in my mind. But it does allow you to fit aftermarket indicators, either 8 or 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter indicators on those. And we do quite a range of indicators. We've got a lot of new indicators coming out as well, all E-marked and LED. And I'm going to be doing a separate video on fitting light kits, fitting indicators, fitting the adapters on the standard headlight brackets, wiring. And the same on the Himalayan. We're doing an indicator adapter that allows you to use either an 8 or 10 millimeter accessory indicator lamp on them, and it's really just a little bolt-on bracket, CNC fitting that goes onto the bike. But again, that'll come in all in that video. Other parts on the Himalayan, the camshaft's been a great success. Thank you very much, everybody's bought one. I really appreciate the feedback you've given us on it. Really happy with the results that's come out. We did have a lot of knockers and detractors saying that we couldn't get 20% extra power for £200, and I think they've all been made to eat their words, because proof that, you know, trying is the great prover, and people have been pleasantly surprised on how well it works and how easy it is to fit and set up. Right, I think that's covered everything Royal Enfield. One thing that's sort of Royal Enfield linked is I've been to a couple of bike shows this year. I went across to Milan and a British show, looking at the new models. Now, I did see the new Meteor 650 in the flesh in Italy. Now, Royal Enfield had it quite heavily disguised. They'd customised it, or they used an outside custom company to customise it. But you could see the bare bones were there of what you're going to get. Now, the customised bike had upside down forks on and cast wheels. I'm pretty sure that the stock bike will have cast wheels, although I couldn't get out of Royal Enfield what it would be. They're talking 2022 for it to be released to the market, but whether or not that'll be in Europe or not, I don't know. But basically, it looks like this bike with the Interceptor engine in. But there were some nice design cues that hark back to the old Royal Enfields, and hopefully they're going to be on the production model. The other bike I saw, and I've been asked a lot, and am I going to make parts for it, and what my thoughts are on it, is the new BSA, I say in inverted commas, Gold Star 650 single. Performance wise, they're claiming a lot. A guy I talked to about it was saying that they reckon they've got a bike in India producing 80 horsepower. I take that with a pinch of salt. Maybe they've got an engine on a test bench with a high performance Carmin that you probably wouldn't want to ride on the road that would produce 80 brake horsepower. Looking at the spec of the bike and the engine, and they're putting out, I think it was 42, it's a similar sort of power. They've targeted the power the same as the stock Interceptor. And I think they've aimed a lot of the things on the bike at the stock Interceptor. They're relying on a lot of the heritage of BSA and the goodwill of people who've bought BSAs and owned BSAs in the past. This bike relates more to Triumph and Royal Enfield than it does to BSA, I'm afraid. The head designer is ex-Triumph. A lot of the parts are influenced by what Royal Enfield have done. A lot of the cycle components are the same as what Royal Enfield have used, or very similar. There was no great surprises there. They have got a very good job of styling it. There was a couple of few styling flaws I thought on the bike, particularly that it had a very heavy seam on the tank, much larger than what the Meteor has on. And like many people might remember when the several bikes came out, Triumphs and Royal Enfields, I mentioned that I always put a black trim on the tank because it tends on the seam, because it tends to make it blend in with the frame. I know the Michelin Flyer came up with a rehash of what I said on that as well. But I think they should take that on board, things like that. If they want to put a heavy seam on, simply put a black trim on it and it will disappear. But on the silver bike it was very, very noticeable. It stood out like a sore thumb. And the original BSAs didn't have a seam on the tank, and it made the tank look much smaller for that. But it's down to cost and production. The production methods now are much different to what they were in the past. And they can be done by machines basically, not by hand anymore. Performance wise and price wise, well, I'll go price first. I think they were trying out on the public to see what they could get away with price on this bike, and there was some people were bandying around that there was going to be £8,000. I don't think they'll sell them personally at £8,000. And I've had a lot of people saying I'm really excited about this new BSA, and my response to that is, if the bike had Mahindra on the tank, would you be as excited? Because that's about as much as it has got in common with the old BSAs, is the badge on the tank. Everything else on the bike is not BSA. It's more Triumph than it is BSA. Like I say, the design cues, a lot of the parts, a lot of the designs on the bike are more related to modern Hinkley Triumphs than anything else. And I would imagine, just like Royal Enfield, there's a lot of ex-Hinkley staff are working either for the subcontractors that are working for BSA or directly for BSA. Mahindra are very like Royal Enfield in the fact that they're buying up companies to get their expertise. Mahindra is a very big car maker, and they've gone into partnership with Ford in the USA. They've bought Pininfarina Design in Italy. So they've got a lot of in-house ability to do things. If you weren't aware, they actually produce Jawa in India. Now, Jawa was a very big It's obviously a Czechoslovakian brand. It wasn't big in Britain. It was a very budget-based two-stroke bike. It was probably the cheapest 350 you could buy at the time, but it wasn't as fast as a 125. It wasn't a great bike here, but it had a big following in India, and they've made a retro version of it for the home domestic market. I don't think it'll ever come to the UK, but it does give some indications on the direction that Mahindra's going. If you look at the Jawa, on the BSA, I sort of sat down with a sheet of paper and a photograph of that and looked at this, and I thought, well, how is the BSA more expensive than this? Now, there is one or two areas on the bike that would make the BSA more expensive. Yes, it's got spoke wheels with alloy rims, so, but that's the same as what the Interceptor's got on. Suspension wise, no real difference. Frame wise, no real difference. Even, you know, the things like tank or levers or whatever, they're all similar quality. Yes, it's got a rev counter on, but cost wise it would be no more than the Speedo with a satellite navigation system, so that sort of cancels each other out. The headlights, the lighting, the indicators, everything are all similar sort of quality and style as what this bike has. So I can't see really, other than parts of the engine, where they're going to get a lot more value for the bike over something like these. Yes, it's going to have similar performance to the Royal Enfield. They're going to go push the Heritage really hard, which, you know, I've already said what I think about that. Don't buy it just for the badge. Buy it because of the bike. I would say have a ride on it. I'm actually really quite keen to get a ride on it. I'm not going to knock it too much until I've ridden it. What I've seen I like, but it has got these few areas that do need attention. They may well give them attention before the production bikes come out, because there were pre-production bikes that were on show. I'm glad to see that they have done a better job on certain areas in Royal Enfield they have done on parts on like footrests and things like that. But where the extra money is the fact that it's water cooled. Now, therefore they've got a water pump, plumbing, header tank, radiator, that sort of thing. I wasn't too impressed with the look of the radiator. It looks like it came off the Jawa actually. And it had a filler on the radiator. I think the filler should be hidden away, and I think they could probably do a better job of disguising it. But again, pre-production, the production one may not be like that. But it does kill the image a little bit, this huge radiator on the front of the bike, because BSAs obviously didn't have water cooling. The engine, yes, I think it's probably got a lot more potential. It'll be choked like the exhaust system on this. It's very similar design to this, but instead of the cat and silencer unit being in here and here, it's actually tucked underneath the front of the motor. So if you have a look at the photographs of the BSA, look at the very front of the crankcases, you'll see, especially if you look from the left hand side, that there is a unit in there which will be the cat and like a silencer built into there. Now, again, this is robbed from the modern Triumph design. That's the way they do it. It's the way Royal Enfield have done it on this, and it's the way that BSA have chosen to do it as well. It does disguise and let you make a nicely styled pipe without having something stuck in the middle of it. But talking about the front pipe, I just think the front pipe's too big. It just looks wrong to me. I'm quite itching to be able to get my hands on one and pull the whole exhaust system off and put something like a 40mm front pipe with a separate silencer on the back to make it look a lot more like a Goldie, and also sound properly. I don't know what problems we'll have by doing that, but it will enhance the looks of the bike no end, I think, and the sound. And that's one of the first areas that I will be looking at when I get a hold of the bike, as well as various other bits and bobs. But it's like everything. We need to get one, ride it, keep it for a few months, learn to live with it, and learn what we don't really want to live with on the bike and how we can improve things. So I think that about wraps everything up. Thanks for all your support in this very troublesome year that we've all had. We've had a very, very busy year, and thanks for your patience, and you've had to wait for things. We are doing our best in very difficult circumstances, but thank you for your loyalty and your support. As usual, I like your suggestions, your comments. Please let me know what you think. I don't know everything. I don't profess to know everything. I like to get my opinion across, but it is just my opinion at the end of the day. It doesn't mean it is the gospel. But let me know what you think, what you want, what you like, what you don't like. And just keep an eye out in 2022 for all the new stuff that's coming along. We are working hard on it. It's just things are a bit tough at the moment, like everybody's finding it, and you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow most of the time. So all the best for the year, and we'll see you next year. Thanks now, bye.